Hello Internet. So today is going to be episode 1 of my Kylo Ren cosplay journey, where we're going to be going through how to make a Kylo Ren costume from the base patterning all the way up to makeup, wigs, everything. I want to do an episode focusing on each piece of the costume, but today we're going to be going over planning and patterning for the costume. I like to get as many reference photos as I possibly can, and usually when I start a new costume I make a Pinterest board for it. I will link in the description box below the link to my Pinterest page where I have all of the reference photos if you want. Reference photos can be anything from other people cosplaying the costume to patterns other people have made to just lots of reference photos from the movie, as well as I also take pictures from the toys they make, because those can actually get a lot of different poses and can show where sometimes where seam lines are, things like that. So I really like to get a very varied amount of reference photos from different things. And then I like to get it all together, see how many layers I'm going to make, what kind of fabric I need to make for them, and so on and so forth. If I need Velcro, how the closures are, where it's tight fitting, where it's loose fitting, where I can cheat and kind of not make things fully, and where I can go around from there. And then I like to draw everything out. And kind of, that's how I pre-pattern. Things don't often stay how I first drew it out, but I like to have a drawing base there and done so I know in my brain what I want to do. My hair won't stay down. And that's basically how I go about planning. Then I go and I see what fabrics I need to buy, what things I need to get for the costume, and what I already have. Poly cotton fabric for all of the base layers, and then I have to buy some fabric for the overcoat and the hood because those are made of the same fabric. And it's a very interestingly designed, like, all black checker pattern, but it's like a weave, and I'm not really sure where I'm gonna find it, and I hope it's not too expensive, but so first things first, even before you go into the patterning phase of your costume, you need to take full measurements of your body. Here is a list of all the things you need measurements for. And now that you have all of your measurements for your body, we can begin patterning. On the top corner, you need the circumference of around your shoulder, all the way around, and about how much room you want to have open. I decided on 18 inches, and it actually fits rather well. Then from this line out here, is 24 inches. So this here is going to come to about the knuckles on my hand. And that's about how far down I want it. And then I've got the hemline. And then here it has this is my wrist line, which I have at 6.5 inches. So we have at the top, you'd need your shoulder, and then your wrist. And then to get from here to here, all the way at the top, I just put the measuring tape down diagonally and went from here all the way to the top. And that's how I made the sleeve pattern. So here is the completed under tunic pattern. This one is going to be a completely pleated piece, or I might get lazy and only do it from the waist. For this pattern, for the entire under tunic, you will only need to make 4 panels of this, and then I will go through and show you each little piece of the pattern. The length of the pattern is from your knee to your shoulder, and for me that measures at 37 inches. Then for the armhole, I measured out 9 inches, which is from the shallowest point of my shoulder to a comfortable side underneath of my armpit. Underneath of my armpit is actually only about 7.5 inches, but you're also going to have to put your full sleeve of the undershirt through this. So you're going to need to leave room so that way it can get through comfortably and you'll be able to move comfortably inside of this. As we layer on more and more pieces, the armholes will get slightly bigger to accommodate for the extra fabric that is laying behind it. You always want to make sure that you leave room so you can get in and out and make it comfortable. Then for making the actual armhole, I made it about I measured from a line down to here and then measured about 3.5 inches and just made this swoop. For the shoulder, I measured out the measurement from my neck to the end of my shoulder is about 5 inches. I took an inch off on each side for comfortableness of movement and neck turning, as well as the fact that there is another piece of fabric underneath of this, like a black turtleneck. And so I made it smaller so that way there was ease of movement on either side. And then the reason why it comes up here is because your shoulders are not flat. If you make it flat like this, it will sit wrong on your shoulder. The fabric will hang from the top point of your shoulder and then kind of awkwardly just come out, and it'll be sitting on top of your shoulder like this instead of laying flat. So if you are very muscular or have very high shoulder muscles, you're going to want to make this angle a lot taller. I went for about 1/2 inch because I'm not that muscular. I don't have very muscular shoulders. Then for the neck hole, I took from this point to the outermost point, which is 9 inches from line to line. And this inner line is the halfway point between the side of my body, and this line is the halfway point between the front of my body. And so after you take the 3 inches here, you just swoop down about 1.5 inches to give room for your neck to come through. And then you take this line all the way down to the bottom of the knee. Also measure out where your waist is. When you're sewing, this piece and the piece that is next to it connect only until the waist, and then they are left open. However, on the back, you do not need to worry about it connecting at the waist here because these are connected all the way down to the bottom and only open on the front and the back. And that is the completed tunic, under tunic pattern. This is the overcoat pattern. As you can see, it is very, very large. The reason for that is because it is 53 inches long. So this is the top of my shoulder, all the way down to the floor, which is 53 inches on me. And this is the outermost garment. It must go from your shoulder to the floor. I've seen some people who've made cosplays where it just goes to like the top of their shoe, but if you look at the Kylo Ren costume, it goes all the way to the ground. So I'm making mine all the way to the ground. And this is the pattern for the collar. So it is 11 inches wide and 4 inches tall. You would fold it in half, and then it would be 2 inches tall, so it's only going to be about this tall, actually. And it is the collar. The way you get that length, 11 inches, is this collar here is 5.5 inches. So you'd need it twice. So you're going to need to make 2 of these. Cut out 2 of these, or make it 22 inches and go for the full Monty. And just make it in 1 piece instead of 2 pieces. It's up to you. I'm going to make mine in 2 pieces. So this armhole here, as you can notice, I've done very little rounding, and I also did not bring off the shoulder. That is because the actual costume piece does not have a seam at the top. It is done on the fold of the fabric, and the seam for the armhole is rolled back and hand stitched under, so that way it looks like it has an invisible seam, and then of course there would be no seam at the top, because this is going to go onto the fold of your fabric. It is 5 inches across because that is the distance between my neck and the tip of my shoulder. And then it'll be able to be rolled back to make the hem. I marked here where my waist is because the pieces of the garment are only going to be connected to each other on these sides here. The rest are going to be left open. As you can see, there's a couple of lines here where I was deciding how wide I wanted the base to be. I finished on 15 inches with hardly any curvature on the internal seam, with all of the curvature being on the external seam. So this is closest, this is like the middle of your body, and this is on the outside. I wanted it as straight as possible here and flared out here. I went for 15 inches on the bottom because it needs to basically, when you step forward, it needs to cover your leg. And 15 inches was basically what it would take to cover my leg with extra fabric left over. And I made it 10 inches wide. 9 inches wide is how wide half of my body shape is, but because there's going to be so many layers beneath this, I added an extra inch, so that way it would fit all of the extra bulk of all of the extra layers. And this one is pretty simple design. It's just very long and very huge. So, give you a better shot of it. Alright, so this is the belt pattern. It's very, very simple. It is a piece of leather, if you wish, or faux leather. That is what I'm going to use. It is 26 inches wide, which is, my actual waist is 23.5, 24 inches. So I added on about 2 inches for the bulk of fabric. I might make it an inch longer. I'm gonna see what it's like at 26, and if I need to make another one at 27 inches, then I will. It is a folded fabric, so it's 6 inches wide total. You'd fold 3 inches on either side, because you want the thickness of a sturdy belt. I don't work with leather, so I'm using faux leather. It's cheaper, quicker, easier. Basically it's like a faux leather vinyl, which is what I'm working with for this. And the one that I have is pretty thin, so that's why I'm doing it in 2. If you're using leather, just use like the 3-inch portion. Don't worry about doing the fold. The way I came up with 3 inches is I have a very small body, so I went from the base, the top of my hip bone, to the base of my rib cage, and it's about 3 inches, and so that's basically where you want the belt to fill in. If you have an exceptionally long body, then to combat that, you would do a little bit, you wouldn't do the full distance between your hip and your rib cage. You would do a little bit less if you have a really long body. So if it comes out to like 7 inches, don't do that. I would say no more than like 5 inches would be the maximum. I think you should go for like the full height here. So that would come out to like about 10 inches of fabric if you were going to do it like this. And that's the basic belt pattern. So the hood pattern is very simple. It is half of the circumference of your head Mine is 20 inches, so I did 10 on either side. Then it is the height of your head from your shoulder to the top of your head, which is 14 inches for me. Then I added an inch on the bottom just for a little extra fabric. And it should literally just be a square. And so that is your basic hood. These lines back here are if you want to round the back of your hood. You can just sew along here, or don't. Another thing is for this top here, you are going to want this to be on the fold of your fabric. So when you fold your fabric in half, you want it to be on like where my knuckles are. So you put this at the top of the fold of the fabric instead of laying it on the side so you don't have to have an extra seam. And yeah, that's it. Here is the hood scarf slash, I guess you could call it a capelet because it's not quite a full cape pattern. It's very simple. It is 10 inches wide with 45 inches across. You would cut 2 of these, and you could either do it on the fold line or you could have a center seam in the back. It's not going to be seen, so it's not really important. You can do it either way. The way I came up with the measurement is I took a long strip of paper, wrapped it from the middle of my back around the front, and then draped it over the other shoulder to the back. The longest part of your cape should reach to the very top of your spine, or it should reach to about the middle of your backside. That's how long I went with mine. And then that will give you the 2 different points that the cape had. And I might later on flare the edges on one side a little bit more. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna do a mock pattern hood and see how I like it at this length, and then if I need to widen the edges. There is the scarf pattern. Alrighty then, so that is the patterns I'm going to use for my Kylo Ren cosplay. You might be wondering why I didn't make a shirt pattern for the sleeves. There's a good reason for that. I bought a sleeveless black turtleneck that I will be attaching the sleeves to because I didn't feel like making a really close-bodied thing, and I wanted something comfortable and soft next to my skin. Good luck with your pattern making. Try to follow your measurements as closely as possible, but if you feel like you need to give yourself a little extra room, do so. I was slightly generous with my sizings for things. Don't follow my sizings specifically. Follow your own sizings for creating your pattern, because if you follow mine specifically and you are a 6 foot tall person, it's not gonna fit, because I'm 5'3". It's not gonna fit you. So please follow your own measurements, but following the patterns if you will. Thanks for watching, and tune in for the next video, which is where I will go over how I am making the sleeves. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye!